South Korea's new president has sought Chinese President Xi Jinping's help in efforts to resume talks with nuclear-armed neighbor North Korea. On the Chinese leader's first visit to South Korea in 11 years, Lee Jae-myung gifted Xi a prized wooden board for the Asian strategy game Go on Saturday. After an APEC meeting in Gyeongju wrapped up, Xi told Lee he was willing to widen cooperation and jointly tackle the challenges they face. Meanwhile, hundreds of protesters joined an anti-China rally in Seoul. The South Korean president has promised to strengthen ties with the United States while not antagonizing China and seeking to reduce tensions with the North. Lee has called for a phased approach to denuclearizing North Korea, starting with engagement and a freeze on further development of nuclear weapons. In a statement, Pyongyang, a military and economic ally of China, dismissed the denuclearization agenda as an unrealizable pipe dream. North Korea has repeatedly and explicitly rejected Lee's overtures, saying it will never talk to the South. In recent years, Pyongyang abandoned its long-standing policy of unification with the South and called Seoul a main enemy.
Our country and our politics are in a pretty dark place right now. Every day, this White House offers up a fresh batch of lawlessness and recklessness and mean-spiritedness and just plain craziness. We've got a president who thinks it's okay to use the Justice Department, just for example, to use the Justice Department to go after his political opponents. And wait. Here's a rule. You can't boo. You got to vote. They won't hear you if you're booing, but they'll hear your vote. It's like every day is Halloween. Except it's all tricks and no treats.
U.S. strikes on alleged drug dealers off the coast of South America have so far killed dozens of people.
These attacks and their mounting human cost are unacceptable.
Human rights groups say what's happening is murder. This is UN spokesperson Ravina Shamdasani.
The U.S. must halt such attacks and take all measures necessary to prevent the extrajudicial killing of people aboard these boats, whatever the criminal conduct alleged against them.
But are the strikes legal? U.S. officials say the military has conducted at least 13 deadly strikes that have killed about 57 people from Venezuela, Colombia, and Ecuador. Families of those killed have denied their relatives were connected to drug trafficking.
Why, if you see a boat have narcotics on it, where's the narcotics? We want evidence, we want proof. There is nothing.
Some experts say the strikes may violate international law as well as U.S. laws against murder and prohibitions on assassination. International law allows for the use of force in self-defense, and the Trump administration told Congress that the actions by cartels constitute an armed attack against the United States.
This is a national security problem. These drugs coming in, they killed 300,000 Americans last year, and that gives you legal authority.
But declaring the cartels terrorist organizations has no bearing on whether military action is justified, according to experts. Members of Congress from both parties have criticized the strikes, and lawmakers could put limits on the president's use of military force. But Republicans who control Congress won't want to cross Trump. He holds enormous sway with Republican voters, 87% of whom approve of his job performance. Court challenges to carry out the strikes would face high hurdles, as U.S. courts often defer to the president on matters of foreign relations and security, while international tribunals generally lack enforcement power.
It was important for us to go with something that corresponds more to the popular image of Notre Dame. So we're really focusing on the famous H-shaped facade with a rose window in the background, which is a kind of poetic license since this rose window is obviously located elsewhere in the cathedral.
The world's largest cargo sailboat finished its first Atlantic crossing on Thursday. The port of Baltimore welcomed the Neoliner Origin, a near 450-foot-long sailboat with its cargo of Renault vehicles, machinery, French liqueurs, and other merchandise. The boat earlier stopped at Saint-Pierre and Miquelon, a French overseas territory near Canada. But the crew of the Neoliner Origin had to partially rely on its motor for the crossing after a storm damaged its aft sail. The design of the Neoliner Origin aims to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 80 to 90% compared to traditional diesel-powered cargo ships. Jean Zanotini is CEO of Neoline, the French ship owner which commissioned it. He says it'll take about 6 months to gain a better understanding of its performance.
Wind propulsion is very interesting for that because it is free energy available everywhere. Not always at the same amount, of course, but it is predictable and it is not impacting anywhere else. You are not relying on a very large infrastructure ashore to prepare carbon-free fuel, for example. You are more independent. So it is very interesting for small to mid-scale vessels, and we intend to prove it with this first pilot vessel.
The Neoliner Origin can carry up to 5,300 tons of cargo and has a commercial cruising speed of 11 knots. It aims to operate monthly rotations between Europe and North America. French naval engineering firm Mauric was in charge of designing the ship. CEO Vincent Séguin said it was a challenge to balance economic viability with environmental innovations.
It was about understanding what had been done in the past, why this technology had been abandoned, and above all, rethinking this architecture with completely new constraints, whether regulatory or technological, with much smaller crews. Therefore, the innovative solutions that have been implemented obviously address the rigging and certain equipment such as anti-drift systems.
While newly designed wind propulsion systems like those on the Neoliner Origin are more efficient at cutting emissions, the UK National Clean Maritime Research Hub says other systems like adding sails to existing boats also exist, and such retrofitted vessels can achieve emissions reductions of 5 to 20% with no operational changes, and up to 30% when optimized for wind conditions, meaning it's never too late or too costly to adapt to new winds of change.
From key central bank decisions to earnings that could set the short-term tone for markets, these are the stories to watch in business and finance in the coming week. The premier event in the coming week may be the non-release of U.S. payrolls data for the second time due to the government shutdown. There will be no data on job openings either. Without those, the Federal Reserve will continue to fly almost blind. While earnings are still coming thick and fast, most of the AI mega caps have already reported and are keeping Wall Street's runaway train on track. The oil market finds itself at an interesting juncture. There's a possibility that new Western sanctions on Russian oil might help curb a ballooning global surplus of unused oil, but the world's largest exporters are jostling for market share as they unwind self-imposed COVID-era production cuts. This week's OPEC Plus meeting could yield a modest increase in output in December, according to sources familiar with the talks. Markets were pricing in a Fed cut, and for the European Central Bank and Bank of Japan to hold steady, expectations that the central banks met. But the situation is different for the Bank of England, with markets seeing a 30% chance of a 25 basis point easing. If that doesn't change ahead of Thursday's meeting, there may be meaningful moves in sterling and gilts.
Residents were forced to dig their possessions from the dirt. after deadly mudslides swept through the Bukwo and Queen districts of eastern Uganda. 6 members of a single family were among those confirmed dead after a night of heavy rainfall pounded the Sebe sub-region on Wednesday. Judith Chilangat is a local chief.
Around 3 a.m. is when I received the call that, Chief, you are sleeping. All the people of Captain Village, almost all of them are dead. Just wake up and come for rescue.
Red Cross official Moses Checho helped local residents and authorities to recover the victims.
We came, we found the mud was all over the place. There was no house seen, so we tried to push the mud to look for the bodies inside the house. So we found the bodies after a long struggle. We removed the bodies from inside the mud.
In another landslide in a neighbouring district, 3 children were buried when mud covered their home. The downpour also disrupted transport, making roadways treacherous and burying a bridge under mud and debris washed down by floodwaters. And continuous rainfall has hampered response operations.
You know, I think it's the scale of it is bigger. I mean, it's more action, more special effects, but it's also by far our most emotional season because it's the end of the story for all of these characters.
Right now, it's nice to be together. It's not super emotional just because
it's a little crazy.
It's a little crazy, but it's exciting. We're just like super excited for it to finally come out. It means a lot that we have spent this long on the show, you know? Yeah.
I mean, everything about it is different, but it also takes all the same kind of full circle moments from season 1 and season 2. I would say it's just more mature. We always say bigger and darker, but it really is. And it's the most emotional and the best ending.
It's full of emotions. It's not just sad. It's just overwhelming in general. But that last day was certainly a big one. Certainly lots of tears and giggles and hugs, which is, it's a memorable one.
Climate change is causing the monuments of the cradle of civilization in Iraq to erode. Urgent calls are being made to save thousands of years of history, which are at risk of disappearing. Harsh, dry weather is increasing salinity in the soil and damaging historical monuments in cities such as Ur. Ur is the birthplace of the biblical patriarch Abraham, while Babylon was once the magnificent capital of empires. Dr. Kazem Hassoun, an inspector at the Antiquities Department in the car, says bricks at the Royal Cemetery are being eaten away.
These salt deposits will eventually cause the complete collapse of the mud bricks that make up this cemetery. The evidence is clear as you can see the bricks gradually eroding over time due to the salts, leading to cracks and cavities. These openings will lead to the sudden collapse of the building.
It is a similar story at the majestic 4,000-year-old ziggurat of Ur. The shrine, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, remains one of the best preserved examples of ancient Mesopotamian architecture. But archaeologist Abdullah Nasrallah says sand dunes and northern winds are causing the deterioration of the massive stepped pyramid temple. The monuments require urgent attention and restoration. However, officials say the lack of funding remains a challenge. The country has already endured decades of warfare that threatened its historical structures. Its latest challenge is altering the country's whole ecosystem, putting its agricultural future at risk, but also endangering its historical footprint.